Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News program. To the headlines. Algeria again summons France's chargé d'affaires over blocked diplomatic pouches, calling it a breach of international law, and withdraws all French embassy privilege cards. Up next, Polisario Front slams colonial powers for undermining Sahrawi rights, vows to keep fighting for freedom. It rejects foreign interference and calls for global solidarity to end colonialism. Also in news tonight, dozens are killed in Gaza Strip while waiting for aid. Government media warns that 100,000 children face mass death, and global protests erupt against the war of starvation. And later on, deadly clashes erupt on Cambodia-Thailand border as death toll hits 33 people. Cambodia's UN envoy urges immediate ceasefire at a closed-door UN Security Council meeting. Full reports are straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. First off in our news tonight, Algeria has summoned the French embassy chargé d'affaires in Algiers over France's continued obstruction of diplomatic pouches exchanges. The foreign ministry condemned the move as a flagrant breach of France's international obligations, noting that what began as restrictions on the Algerian embassy in Paris has now spread to consulates across the country, despite prior French pledges to resolve the issue.
The chargé d'affaires of the French embassy in Algeria was summoned once again today to the ministry regarding the ongoing obstacles faced by the Algerian embassy in Paris in the delivery and receipt of diplomatic pouches, a clear violation of France's international obligations. What initially affected only the Algerian embassy in Paris has now expanded to include Algeria's consular offices across France, despite prior assurances from the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs that this measure would be reconsidered.
The Algerian Foreign Ministry announced Saturday that the withdrawal of all privileged entry cards for Algerian ports and airports previously held by the French embassy. In a statement, the ministry said the decision strictly applies the principle of reciprocity.
In strict application of the principle of reciprocity, the Director of Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs proceeded to revoke all privilege access permits to Algerian ports and airports previously granted to the French embassy in Algeria.
A new poll by a leading research firm of LCI released Friday shows French President Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister François Bayrou losing significant public support. Macron's confidence rating dropped 4 points in July to just 28%, while Bayrou suffered a steeper 5-point decline, landing at 22%. The survey highlights growing public discontent with the government's policies. Australia and Britain signed a landmark 50-year defense deal on Saturday to produce nuclear-powered submarines, marking another blow to French arms exports. The pact follows Canberra's cancellation of its marine or submarine contract with Paris and poses a serious challenge to France's global arms sales strategy. Sermensi reports.
France has suffered a major strategic and economic setback following Australia's abrupt decision to cancel a €56 billion contract for the purchase of 12 French submarines. The shock was compounded when Canberra announced a new trilateral agreement with the United Kingdom and the United States to develop nuclear-powered attack submarines under the AUKUS alliance. This shift marks more than just a lost deal. It signals a broader erosion of France's standing in the global defense market. French submarines, once considered a premium choice, are increasingly viewed as overpriced, technologically outdated, and burdened by complex designs. Delays in delivery schedules have further damaged their reliability in the eyes of international buyers. The challenges extend beyond naval equipment. French fighter jets are also losing favor as countries around the world prioritize fifth-generation stealth aircraft like the American F-35 and the Russian Su-57. With China, India, and others now entering the advanced aviation sector, France finds itself squeezed out of key defense markets. Meanwhile, the decline of France's military footprint in Africa has further weakened its arms exports. Several African nations have turned away from French military hardware, often seen as less advanced and more expensive, in favor of more cost-effective and battle-proven alternatives such as Russian-made weapons. This string of setbacks highlight a deeper issue: France's diminishing global influence. From defense to diplomacy, Paris is grappling with a decline in international relevance, a trend made worse by mounting internal political and economic instability.
Turning to other news now, the Polisario Front declared that the Sahrawi people will prevail in their struggle, citing their unity and the righteousness of their fight for independence. Speaking at a Liberation Movement summit in Johannesburg, Sahrawi Foreign Minister updated attendees on developments in the resistance and condemned colonial powers for undermining Sahrawi self-determination. He accused these forces of scheming against the Sahrawi people's legitimate national right.
Morocco is still continuing its occupation of our territories, still doing and intensifying repression against us people, and still embarked in the plunder and theft of our natural resources. And above all, Morocco still continuing its refusal and obstruction of the AU and UN peace efforts. But we in the Polisario Front, in the same time that we continue to struggle on all the fronts and by all the means at our hand, in the same time we are open and committed to cooperate with all those efforts aiming to find a peaceful, just and lasting political solution that is respectful and in conformity with the international legality and international law.
The Sahrawi diplomat voiced the pride of Polisario Front members in being part of the global liberation movements that stood against colonialism and apartheid.
We still have to put Africa in its right place in the concert of nations. We strongly support this Congress, and we believe in the capacity of the liberation movements to make the difference. As they did in the past, they can do better today and confront the challenges which are, with the help of the undying vision of our founding fathers and our lifelong principles and values, especially those of freedom, justice, self-determination, struggle against colonialism and neocolonialism, and against the foreigner domination and foreigner intervention, and for human and people's right, for a better world for humanity as a whole.
The Sahrawi Foreign Minister called on fellow liberation movements to continue their mission and help end all forms of colonialism, including Morocco's occupation of Sahrawi territory.
These movements did not yet deliver and implement its historic mandate, which is and which will remain the total liberation and economic emancipation of and cultural decolonization of our continent and its peoples. In addition to the remaining colonial issues on our continent, which mainly in Western Sahara and the islands of Comoros, some islands of Madagascar and the island of Mauritius, we have achieved a total political liberation of our continent.
And speaking of Morocco, the Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization has called for increased public mobilization to pressure the Makhzen regime to cut ties with the Zionist occupation. During a protest outside Parliament in Rabat on Friday, Secretary General Aziz Hannawi urged citizens to step up day and night demonstrations to oppose normalization policies that he said defy the will of the Moroccan people.
If we go absent from the street, the situation will be relieved, the normalization will ease and be accepted, and they will be convinced of it. They are right, and it's their duty to step out. Then step out again and again, day and night, through sit-ins, marches and protests. This is at the very least blockade of the official stance, which in turn is besieging the popular position that supports the resistance.
In a dramatic border crossing, 54 Moroccan children swam through treacherous waters to reach Spain's Ceuta on Saturday, according to Spanish RTVE. Spanish Civil Guard patrols scrambled to rescue some from the choppy Mediterranean, while others completed the dangerous journey unaided. The mass swim occurred as hundreds of migrants exploited thick fog to attempt the crossing from Morocco. Spanish authorities confirmed most children were Moroccan nationals and have been placed in temporary reception centers. Ceuta officials have requested urgent support from Madrid to handle the influx. Moving on to the ongoing genocide in Gaza Strip, Israeli occupation forces slaughtered at least 42 Palestinians and wounded dozens more in a targeted attacks on humanitarian aid distribution centers across Gaza Strip on Saturday. The Zionist regime's tanks and drones struck desperate civilians waiting for food in Zakim, Wadi Gaza, and Khan Yunis, turning bread lines into bloodbaths as famine ravages the besieged enclave. Palestinian authorities condemned the deliberate massacre of starving families. This latest atrocity exposes the genocidal reality of the occupation's starvation warfare against Gaza's civilian population. The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced on Saturday that 5 more people, including children, have died of famine and malnutrition in Gaza Strip over the past 24 hours. This brings the total number of deaths caused by the starvation in the besieged enclave to 127, including 85 children. The ministry warned that the humanitarian catastrophe is deepening as food and medical aid remain blocked, leaving the most vulnerable, especially children, at highest risk. No longer just slaughtered by Zionist bombs, Palestinians in Gaza now count their dead from deliberate starvation, with 5-month-old Zainab becoming the latest innocent life stolen by the Zionist occupation's criminal blockade. Every emaciated child's body is proof of the occupation's calculated genocide strategy. Zara Farjani has the full story.
At the gates of Nasser Hospital's morgue, Ahmed carries a tiny white shroud, the body of his 5-month-old daughter, Zainab. A final look and a last kiss. One last goodbye before laying her to rest. Zainab died of malnutrition after months of hospitalization and desperate medical efforts that came too late. She suffered so much. She was malnourished. So many children here are the same. She spent 3 months in the hospital, and this is the result. She died.
She needed special formula milk, but it's not available in Gaza. We also needed specific tests, but those aren't available either.
Zainab's body told the story her parents couldn't bear to repeat. Forensic doctors found a fragile skeletal frame, a swollen, discolored belly, and skin stretched tight over bones. Shocking, heartbreaking images, proof of a suffering no child should endure.
As a complication of lack of milk, she got vomiting and diarrhea. This is make a lot of dehydration for her case, and she gotten severe acute malnutrition. She got also infection in the blood, what we called it sepsis, and this is aggravate the condition. This is make for her difficulty in swallowing, and unfortunately she was died at home or at tent where the family is evacuated due to severe malnutrition.
The Israeli entities deliberately starving Palestinians in Gaza. They are left to die in horrific suffering, a worldly punishment inflicted by an occupation that could only be Zionist to reach such depth of inhumanity. A complete abandonment of a people facing imminent death, with the world complicit in silence. According to the Ministry of Health, nearly 124 patients have died from severe or acute malnutrition, including 84 children, and the toll is expected to rise significantly in the coming days.
The government media office in Gaza has warned of an imminent mass killing of 100,000 children, including 40,000 infants under 1 year old, due to the ongoing blockade. In a grave statement, the office said this tribe is facing an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe, with babies and young children at risk of death within days, amid a total lack of formula, nutritional supplements, and basic necessities. It described this situation as a deliberate mass killing carried out by the Zionist occupation through starvation and siege.
We urgently warn of an imminent, unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Over 100,000 children, including 40,000 infants, face the threat of mass death within days due to extreme deprivation. This is a slow, deliberate, and preventable tragedy, and desperate mothers are forced to feed their babies only water.
Still with Palestine-related news, at least 9 Palestinians were killed and dozens injured on Saturday in a series of Zionist airstrikes targeting several areas across the Gaza Strip. According to the Palestinian news agency, 4 martyrs and multiple wounded were reported after an apartment was bombed in Gaza City's Ariman neighborhood. 3 others were killed and many injured, some critically, in a strike on Tel al-Hawa in the south of the city. West of Gaza City, a young man and his wife lost their lives when rubble from targeted building collapsed on their tent. In southern Gaza, at least 5 Palestinians, including 2 children, were killed in an occupation drone strike on a tent sheltering displaced families in Khan Yunis and Mawasi area, with a Nasser medical complex warning the toll may rise. In Chile, dozens of vehicles covered in Palestinian flags joined a solidarity caravan in Santiago on Friday, demanding an end to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Departing from the Palestinian club, participants displayed banners and wore keffiyehs in a powerful show of support. Organizers called for urgent global action as displacement and suffering escalate across Palestinian territories.
Right now, Gaza is dying. 2 million people will die if you don't take the measures we are taking today. This is our way of drawing the world's attention to what is really happening in the Gaza Strip and in Palestine, because the situation is the same in the West Bank, where 55,000 Palestinians have been displaced. Today, I'm protesting against injustice, against the hunger that children are suffering from, so that it may one day end, because my family comes from Palestine, and we all suffer from the war.
In a related story, the global protests against Zionist war on Gaza reflect a growing wave of international solidarity with the Palestinian people, as millions demand an end to the genocide, the lifting of the blockade, and accountability for the atrocities committed by the Zionist occupation. The demonstrations spanning Arab nations, Western countries, and Latin America show that public outrage can no longer be ignored by complicit governments.
As we know, Israel has been forced.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, in southern Lebanon, 2 people were killed on Saturday in a Zionist airstrike on the town of Dabal in the Tyre district. According to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, the attack was carried out by a warplane targeting the area in the South Governorate. In Yemen, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sari announced a series of operations inside the occupied Palestinian territories, including a strike on a sensitive target in the occupied Be'er-Saba area. In a video statement released on Friday evening, Sariya said Houthi forces launched 4 qualitative operations, one involving a hypersonic ballistic missile. He warned of further escalatory actions to stop the aggression and the ongoing war of starvation and extermination in the Gaza Strip.
نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية.
The missile forces of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a special military operation targeting a sensitive site belonging to the Zionist enemy in the occupied area of Beer Sheba using the Palestine II type ballistic missile. The operation successfully achieved its objective by the grace of God. Additionally, the drone force of the Yemeni armed forces conducted 3 military operations using 3 drones, targeting 3 vital sites of the Israeli enemy in the areas of Rashrash, Ashkelon, and southern Hadira, near Haifa in the occupied Palestine. These operations also successfully achieved their objectives by the grace of God.
في فلسطين المحتلة وقد حققت العمليات أهدافها بنجاح بفضل الله.
Moving on to the war in Sudan, the Al-Fasher resistance committees have accused the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, of imposing a deliberate starvation campaign to subjugate the city's population. In a Facebook statement, the committees said the RSF has sealed all border crossings, blocking food and medicine from reaching civilians. They warned the militia is systematically targeting vulnerable groups, including children, women, and the elderly, to cement military and political control through hunger. And as you followed in our headlines tonight, the Cambodian Ministry of Defense announced Saturday that 13 people were killed and 71 injured in ongoing border clashes with Thailand. The Thai military confirmed 5 soldiers' deaths on Friday, raising the total death toll to 20, including 14 civilians. Both sides reported renewed fighting around 5 a.m. local time. Cambodia accused the Thai forces of shelling positions in Pursat province with 5 heavy artillery rounds. The violence has forced the evacuation of over 138,000 people in Thailand and more than 35,000 in Cambodia. Additionally, Cambodia has called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire with Thailand after deadly border clashes left 33 people dead on both sides. Speaking after a closed-door UN Security Council meeting in New York, Cambodia's permanent representative, Chia Kyo, stressed his country's commitment to ending the violence and restoring calm.
Cambodia has called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, and we also urge a peaceful resolution to the dispute. How can we be accused, a small country with an army 3 times smaller and no air force, of attacking a larger neighbor? The Council has urged both parties to exercise maximum restraint and seek a diplomatic solution, and we fully support that call.
And before we wrap up, let's catch up on more news stories making waves around the world in the News in Brief with Sofian Kanturi.
At least 6 people were killed, 13 others injured on Saturday in the armed attack targeting a courthouse in the city of Zaidan, located in Sistan, southeastern Iran. Russia's defense ministry announced on Saturday that its forces had taken control of 2 towns in the Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regions, claiming advances on several fronts as part of what Moscow refers to as its special military operation. The International Monetary Fund approved on Friday a $625 million loan for Chad aimed at strengthening the country's macroeconomic stability. The 19th May 1955 Stadium in the eastern Algerian city of Annaba is hosting the opening ceremony of the first edition of the African School Games. In addition to Annaba, the event is also being held across the cities of Skikda, Sétif and Constantine, once again showcasing Algeria's strong capacity to host major sporting events.
And that's the end of our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, X and Instagram, as well as our website. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Islam Sid. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, good night.